Thank you for joining us for our last webinar for 2020. We're delighted to announce that Workflow Anywhere, the mobile app for Extended Workflow Console for Sage 300, is now available. It has been developed by AutoSimply in conjunction with ORCID, and today Anne and I are pleased to welcome Edmund Tong from AutoSimply to present with us. Fortunately for this early morning session from our time zone, Edmund will only appear through a video recording, but we are very happy to welcome Edmund with us. The latest offering in ORCID's suite of products, a mobile app for Extender workflow, complements all editions of Extender and the remote action service launched a few months ago that lets you approve Sage 300 workflow records from an email link without having to log on to Sage 300. So today we will demonstrate the app to approve a range of workflow configured in ORCID sample data for Sage 300 version 2021. In the second part of the presentation, we will go through how to configure and install Workflow Anywhere to enable the app. There are a few demo and training videos to configure Extender workflow, so we will not cover the detail of the workflow configuration itself in this presentation. We encourage you to watch those at your own leisure if you haven't already done so. Workflow can be applied to all Sage 300 core modules and third-party modules developed in the SDK, such as EFT processing and RMA, and we will look at example of such workflows today using the app. But first, I would like to ask Edmund to introduce the app, and as I mentioned before, it is very early in the morning in Hong Kong. It's actually the middle of the night, so for that we will play the video that was recorded yesterday. So bear with me while I switch to the video.
Okay, thank you, Natalie. Hi, everyone. I'm Edmund from AutoSimply. As you know, we have been developing mobile apps and web services for a few years already for the barcode and Sales Anywhere products. This time round, we are super excited to partner with ORCID Systems, make use of our experience in those technologies, and bring you the new Workflow Anywhere app. Users can see all the workflows assigned to them and action on the workflows anytime, anywhere remotely, such as approving or rejecting a purchase order request. The web service uses the standard Sage SDK to interact with the Sage modules, so it works with any workflow you can set up in Extender. The apps are now available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. There's also a Windows app for computers running on Windows 10, and it's available on the Microsoft Store. I'll now pass it to Anne to show you how simple and powerful it is. Over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Edmund. And while we just switch to my machine, there we go. You should be seeing my Sage 300 desktop. So thanks for that, for those words, Edmund. And as Edmund explained, that the Workflow Anywhere app shows you all the entries that are applicable to you or a group you're in from the Workflow console. So I'm currently logged into my demonstration company as administrator and viewing all the workflow instances. These are all the workflow instances that are active in this particular company. And the groups that these ones are assigned to accounts. This one's assigned to the demo user, AR approver, financial manager, etc. But I'm going to log on to the app as demo, and demo is in all these groups as well. So pretty much we'll see the same list of activities on the demo app. So I'm going to flick across onto my mobile phone. So you can see my mobile phone here, and I'm going to launch Workflow Anywhere. And because I've logged in before as demo, you can see in the top right-hand side, the app remembers the site to connect to and the account that you use, but that can be changed. And I'm seeing here the same list of workflow instances that are waiting for people in the accounts group or particular users like demo or Anne or in the AR group, etc. So it's the same list of workflow apps that excuse me, workflow instances to approve. So the first one I'm going to look at is this second last one on the list, telling me that Anne has updated the EFT options. When I click on it, I see more of the information. So Anne updated EFT options and set the unposted, allow create EFT file from the unposted AP batches. So this is an unusual situation in this database. We typically only export posted entries. And so the workflow is not requiring an approval as such, but just an acknowledgement so that we can, keep a track of who changed the options when and who acknowledged that this change has happened. So when I click acknowledge, this is going to go back to the Sage 300 company and progress that workflow instance. And when we go back onto our list from the, our console or our app list, you can see that that second last entry is now gone as we have acknowledged, and that workflow is now complete. So another example that I'd like to show you is a request to approve a customer's credit limit. So where's this? There's some Rma approvals. That's on hold one. So let's go. I should have one here. Here's this urgent one, the new credit limit that's been marked urgent. So these colors and the group wordings or the categories down the right-hand side are your workflow colors. And in my case, I normally just show the area that it's responsible, for example, purchases, accounts, and sales. But when something's unusual, I use the urgent category, and that's colored in red. And this one's unusual because the credit limit that's being requested is over 50,000, which in our case is an exception. So that's how we end up with different colors and namings for the categories. So I'm going to click on this new credit limit and I see a little bit more detail that it's Ronald Black. He's in the retail group. The workflow status is credit limit on hold. So I know that the credit limit has been reverted back to the original, and I see that the amount Susan is requesting is 55,000. And the key or the customer ID is 1200. So if we go ahead and if I'm happy with this, or I go ahead and approve, I still have the opportunity to change this credit limit. So maybe I think 55,000 is a bit much, so I'm going to make it 54,000 and give a comment and go ahead and approve. So that's going back to Sage 300, finishing the workflow instance and updating the customer's credit limit to 54,000. And sending all the necessary emails to alert people who need to be alerted that that change has gone through. And this is the same for any of the workflow instances that we have. Anything that you can configure in Sage 300. So in using extender workflow. So as you know, it can be on AP batches, AR batches, so invoice or receipt or credit note or adjustment, GL batches, AP the same. Here's an AP invoice batch waiting to be posted. So when we click on it, we see that Susan submitted this. It's waiting for the accounts group, of which Demo is a member. The total batch is $100. And if I accept and post, this is going to post the batch. So there's no comment requested for this one, nothing to adjust, but accepting and posting posts the batch and moves it off my workflow console. So any type of batch, GL batch, can be a workflow approval can be set up around that. And we can also do documents, for example, purchase orders, purchase requests, sales orders, any third party developed in the SDK. For example, RMA, we've got our RMA approvals. So this allows me, if I go ahead and approve this, it allows me to complete the document so people can create replacement orders or credit notes of that particular RMA. But we'll have a look at this purchase requisition. So it's requisition number 21 and it's waiting for approval. Total dollar value is 2,000 and its approval is required for one extra wide screen. So as you can see, Anne's after more technology as always. So hoping that my extra large screen approval will be made. But I'm going to go ahead and approve this one. And this one's slightly different. It does have a comment. But this one's slightly different because when the PO requisition is approved, it converts it to a sales order, sorry, a purchase order. So we don't see that one dropping off the list. We see it, where is it now? We should see it here showing us, oh, no, we're not going to see it because it's been converted from a PO to a requisition, sorry, from a PO requisition to a purchase order, but the purchase order will be assigned to a user from the manager table, and Demo is not the manager for Anne in that particular case. So we will see it on our workflow console for the appropriate user. So I'm just going to flick back now onto my Sage 300 and I'm in the same company. Now I'm logged in as administrator. And if I refresh this, I should see here my PO approval, my requisition being approved. I'm not actually seeing it. Maybe because I completed that off the my workflow console, but I do have a purchase order and it should be for their screen. So let's go ahead and look at the history for these ones that I have been working on. So in the inquiries, the workflow summary log, we'll see all the approvals that have been happening in this particular database. And if the first one we look at is the EFT notification. And we see that on the 16th, Anne changed the EFT options, the AP unposted or posted batches selection, and the workflow instance was started. And on the 17th today here in Sydney at 7:07, Demo acknowledged that. And the emails were sent back to Anne to say that the change has been acknowledged. If we look at one of the other approvals that I did, so the AR credit limit, and I think that was for, I forget which customer. Not sure. Can you remember the customer I did, Natalie? Anyway.
No, but if you have a look at the detail log, you should see it in there, ordered in the right, maybe ordered in the date that we actually did it. No, the other, start off from the other's icon.
That's correct. So
sometimes with a time difference, it can get a bit.
With the time difference, we get a different effect. So here's the one for our PO approvals, which I see is actually gone into an error step. So we'd have to have a look into that to see what's happened. So the AP batch that I posted, if I drill down, if I look at the values here, I can see that it was batch number 79 and the batch was posted. And you can also drill down. So if I was to drill down, it would drill down into that AP invoice batch number 79. And I will see, because the post button is not active, that one is posted. The credit limit change that I did, looking at the values, you can see that the approval comment was okay at 54, and the approved credit limit was set to 54. And drilling down into that, into the AR customer. So it's configurable what you drill down into from any workflow instance. And in this case, we could go to the customer activity, or the EFT customer, and we can see that Ronald Black's credit limit is now sitting at 54,000. And the last one I worked on was the EFT options notification. So drilling down, looking at the values from that, we can see that the unposted flag was set to yes. So licensing wise, what do we need? So any user that needs access to the workflow console needs to be a workflow user. But if you need access to the workflow app, then you need to be both a workflow user and an app user. And that is configured in your license screen. And this runs across all your companies. So the NFR license allows you 10 workflow users and 10 workflow anywhere users. So once on the NFR license, you can select up to 10 of your Sage 300 users as workflow users. So they'll have access to the workflow console and be able to approve or reject from there. But you know, as subset or all of these, because it's 10/10, I can make all of them workflow anywhere users, so they are able to launch the app and connect via a mobile device. So I'm going to hand back to you, Natalie, to summarize and introduce the next bit.
Thank you. There we go. So thanks, Anne. And what we've seen so far on the app is based on the ORCID version 2021 sample data for Sage 300, which we will be releasing in the next few days. To have a look by yourself at the app, there's two ways to do that. You can just download the app and from your Google Store or Apple Store or Windows Store. And by default, if you don't do any configuration, it will connect to the ORCID demo server. So basically, you'll be logged in as that demo user, and you'll have the same list that we've looked at just now. It is refreshed every day, so if you go and approve a few records, they drop off your list and they'll come back the next day for a new demo. As Anne mentioned, as a Sage 300 partner, you're entitled to NFR codes for all our modules, including 10 users for workflow users and workflow anywhere, which are all named users. So you can contact us with your Sage 300 details to get the codes that you need to get going. Now, how to get started? You need to purchase a license for Workflow Anywhere users through your usual distributors. So for North America, you all know Robert Lavery and his team who distribute our products. And the details should be on the price list. And if you have any questions on that, you can contact Rob or ourselves. You then download the app from the App Store. And you also need to download the installer for Workflow Anywhere, which will configure your web service. And you download that in the ORCID website on the product download area, where Extender and other modules, where you're used to downloading Extender and other modules. So once you've done that, well, actually, just before we look at exactly how it works and go through a demo, let's go through the key requirements and the licensing methods for Workflow Anywhere. Workflow Anywhere supports all supported versions of Extender. So as of now, it is versions 2018 and above, so all the way to 2021. It does require the latest product update of Extender, PU8 and above, and it works with both versions of both editions of Extender, Configurator or Developer. How to work out whether you need configurator or developer. That with configurator, you have access to all the pre-configured workflow actions. So a lot of the examples in our demo data only use configurator. For example, the AR credit limit approval that we've looked at, that still has different parameters based on the amount. You have different approvers based on the credit limit amount that is approved. That still uses the pre-configured action, so you don't need a custom script or custom table to run this one. Same as the EFT option alert notification, you can run that with Configurator. You would need Developer Edition if you need a custom table to track some parameters. For example, in the PO approval, we configure who is the managers who needs to be approving based on the amount and the user in a custom table that is stored in Extender. So that requires Extender Developer. You then need your workflow users, and workflow users are named users based on your Sage 300 users. And a subset of those, or all of them, could be Workflow Anywhere users who have access to the app, and they're also named users. So your Workflow Anywhere users come in addition to the workflow users. You can have more workflow users than Workflow Anywhere app for users who don't need the app, but you need to be a workflow user before you can become a Workflow Anywhere user. The mobile app, Workflow Anywhere, uses the Sage 300 user security. So you can, to approve a customer credit limit, you need to have access to AR in Sage 300. However, you only use a LAN pack at the time where your workflow list is refreshed, so when you first log on to the app, or when you progress the workflow, when you click approve or reject. When you're just when you're logged onto the app and seeing the list, that doesn't use a LAN pack. So a few named users would then share a LAN pack, just the point of time when they need it. And there is no special license for Workflow Anywhere server as such. You license through the users. How does it work? You install and activate Extender and configure some workflow templates in Sage 300. So either you've already done that, you've got a site that is already running workflow, and then you want some of the users to access the app, or if it's a brand new workflow project, you configure your workflow templates. Then you download and install the Workflow Anywhere web service, which installs a website in IIS. That can be done on your Sage 300 server, your app server, or the server where you're installing the web screens if they're different, or a completely different server, and that depends on your IT configuration. If you're going to use Workflow Anywhere outside of your network remotely, you would configure an HTTPS link, so you import an SSL certificate in IIS. There are some details on that in the online help for Workflow Anywhere, but generally your IT team is the best place to advise of the best way to set up your SSL certificate, what type of certificate you need, etc. In the Extender license screen, you would then configure which users are Workflow users and Workflow Anywhere users. Then you can download the relevant app for your device and start using it. So now I'm going to hand over back to Anne to show us how that works.
Thanks, Natalie. So back on my Sage 300 desktop. First thing I'm going to do is share my phone again. So to download the Workflow Anywhere app, depending, you go to your iStore Play Store and search for Workflow Anywhere. So you can see it's top of my search list, and there you'll find the Workflow Anywhere app developed by AutoSimply for Extender workflows. So you download and install that, and that will give you this icon that we saw before, and I'll show you the configuration of that in a tick. So then go to ORCID's website, log in, and on the product download page, you will find per version that's supported. So in 2018, 19, 20, and 21, you will find the Workflow Anywhere app. web service. So you download this. It is the same download for all the versions. As you know, Extender version 8 and above is PU 8 and above is needed, and that is the same across all the versions. But you do need to install the specific version of Extender, but the Workflow Anywhere app is the same. So you download this, and that downloads this particular file, the Workflow Anywhere setup. Run that, and it installs the web service and configures the web service. So what you'll end up in IIS is with your application pool and the Workflow Anywhere web service. And if you go to our online help, there's instructions and it shows you in detail what gets set up. So back on our website, if you go to the resources online help, Extender, you'll see in the topics, we've got the Workflow Anywhere, which starts off with an overview, for example, installing Workflow Anywhere, how to get going with that. So the way I've installed here is I'm connecting through to my Sage 300 without using HTTPS. So I'm all on the intranet, which is fine. But obviously I need to be in the office to do this particular, to do the operations that I've been showing you. You can install the Workflow Anywhere web service and make it accessible if you outside the office, if you use a certificate, and then you can be accessing and doing these operations from outside the office. And then licensing, as I showed you earlier, in your Sage 300, in the specific company, you say which of your Sage 300 users are workflow users and which ones are Workflow Anywhere users based on your count, which is made available via the license. So these 10 Workflow Anywhere users can work in as many companies as you need, but across all your companies, you're only allowed 10 users. You cannot have 10 different users in company B and another 10 different users in company C. So Workflow Anywhere workflow users are named users, and it's applicable across all your companies. And Workflow Anywhere could be a subset of those or could be the same number. So you can make up to your Workflow Anywhere user count Workflow Anywhere users. And that's all that's specific to Workflow Anywhere. Now you would go and create your workflow templates. And I'm looking here at the 2021 sample data, which will be loading up pretty soon. And these are the workflow templates that we saw workflow instances for. So the AP invoice approval batch, I didn't show you, but vendors need approval, new vendors and new GL accounts need approval. This is one I did show you. So the EFT option notification. So a pretty simple workflow. When the option is changed, it sends an email and starts the workflow instance. Then waits for somebody to, let me just close that, waits for somebody to acknowledge, and the acknowledgement step sends an email and just closes off the workflow instance. So that's what we saw happening when Anne changed the EFT options and Demo acknowledged the change of the EFT options. If I look at the customer credit limit approval, slightly more complicated, we're in the workflow, in the 2021 sample data, we've configured notes which explain how the workflow is working, where you need to set the parameters, what teams are needed. So that should help you if you take our sample data and want to put your own usernames into the appropriate groups or configure the limits as you want. So this is the other one that I demonstrated where when the credit limits changed, we set which the user, quite a long list here, we set which user list, which user department is, whether it's the AR user group or the AR management group who need to approve depending on the credit limit. And then wait for approval, which is going to approve or reject. And in the approve step, it asks for it gives the opportunity to amend the credit limit, type in the comment, and then sets the customer to the amended credit limit value and sends emails and closes off the workflow. So this is, the configuration of your workflow templates, whether you're using the workflow app to approve or using the workflow console to approve, there's no difference at all. So your workflow app can be approving any workflow templates that you've set up, across all the core modules, AR, AP, GL, ICPO, OE, PJC. So you can have workflows to approve contracts have been set up correctly, and they can be on hold until approved through the workflow, and many variations of that. So just to show again how this works. So once you've got your workflow template configured, what I'm going to do is go back and change that EFT option again, because it's a nice easy one to demonstrate. So on our EFT options, so I'm logged in as administrator. On our EFT options, you can see our allow unposted batches is yes. So I first need to turn it off and then turn it on again, because the workflow instance is being triggered when that is set to yes. And the workflow instance is being started, and email notifications being sent, and administrator is told as well. So there's a acknowledge record sitting now again in the workflow console, which I'm going to connect through using the app to show you that. So if we go now to my phone and launch the app again. So because I've configured this workflow app on my machine, it remembers the IP address to connect to and the user, so it's logged in automatically as demo. And if I scroll down to the bottom, I should have this new EFT options, this time updated by admin. It's urgent because that was my choice, and it was started at 7:32 this morning. So if I go in and acknowledge, so there was no comment or any input required on that one. And back on my template, you can see, on my list, my workflow console list, you can see that one has now been removed. And when we go back into 300, we will see that one being approved. But the settings on the Workflow Anywhere app are accessed through this option. So in the settings, so this is where you log in. So I had logged in as demo and connecting through to the Orca Oz enterprise company. So if a user was approving workflows across multiple companies, they would use the same username and password, but connect to different companies each time. And at the point of connecting through, it is validating A, that it's a Sage 300 user, B, that it's a workflow user, and C, that it's a workflow app user. And if we attempt to connect, with any of those being wrong, you get the appropriate error message. But the other configuration that has happened is on the settings, you put in the IP address or the HTTPS address of your Sage 300 server. So I'm connecting via, locally, so no HTTPS. But when you first install the app, if you do not fill in your IP address, by default, it connects as the demo user to our Orchid demo server. So you can do this, download the app, don't fill in any details, and as you log in, you will connect through to demo.orchid.systems, which is our sample database, which is always live, and we reload this data a couple of times a day. So feel free to download the app and connect through and have a play with these particular records. Note it, everyone's using this, so you may or may not find different records available here when you log in, but this is a fine way to demo as well if you don't want to, actually tailor some information for a particular demo that you need to do if you just want to show a couple of records. And so you can go ahead and interact with these ones here. You will automatically be logged in as demo, and you will see these or similar entries on the workflow app. I think that's all I was going to show. So back to you, Natalie.
Thank you, Anne. Okay, so what we've looked at in this second demo is how to install and configure a workflow anywhere. And the key steps to do that are documented in the online help that you can access from the resources section of the ORCID website. help.orcid.systems is the link, and we are gradually adding all our modules to this online help sideline plug for the online help. So we've looked at the fact that we need to configure our workflow templates in Extender and looked at some examples from our ORCID 2021 sample data. You then install the web service by running the installer, and it does the initial configuration, creates the app pool, and you can then download the app and configure it to point to the IP address or the name that you've given to that website. So what we're going to do now is once more have a look at that demo data, but focusing on the Windows app. Reminder that if you leave your configuration in the app blank, it connects to the demo server. And we will look at the Windows app, because while Windows phones are probably not very common anymore these days, the Windows app can be downloaded on the Microsoft Windows Store for Windows 10 machine, can be used remotely as well as while you're on the network. And that lets you look at and approve or reject or progress workflow records from the app, rather than logging into Sage 300, which lets you share some LAN packs across users. So I've got my app here, which is available in my on my machine. I've also added it to the toolbar. My settings here are blank, so it connects to my demo server. And in this case, I have a few different databases, but the one where the workflow is configured is the Extender workflow database. So when I log in, I can see all the different types of approvals that have been allocated to demo, or to a group that a workflow user group that demo user is part of. So workflow can be applied to Sage 300 core modules, your GL, your accounts payable, accounts receivable, order entry, purchase orders. So your master files, and we've got some examples here of an AP vendor approval, which I can approve or reject. And this is for creating a new account. So I've configured the workflow so that when a new account is created, it immediately it is made inactive by default until it is approved. So I can approve here, put in a comment, reconfirm that that is actually what I want to do, and as I'm approving, I get confirmation that has been approved, and it drops off my list. On master files, I have a few others here, which would be my customer credit limits that we have looked at before. I'm requesting 25,000, and this one has been configured that I can change the amount or leave it as is as I'm approving. So we'll work with other master files such as GL account. We do have an example here in the demo data, as well as some examples we haven't configured in the demo data, but we have done worked with some partners like IC items or any other master file. It also works on transaction headers like your sales orders, purchase orders, IC adjustments, and RMA. And here we have a few examples. So we've looked at our PO requisition, our purchase order, and there is a full demonstration of the purchase requisition and purchase order approval workflow in a video that for a webinar that we did a couple of months ago. So here I have a two-level approval because it is a large purchase order. So first it's going to be approved by M, the manager, and then the financial controller needs to do a final approval. So on progress this one. But I think you get the idea of the breadth of the workflow that you can configure using Extender Workflow. As I mentioned before, these are colors and then categories that help you filter and quickly see what it's all about are configurable as you're setting up your workflow templates, and you can change the color as it progresses. So in this case, you know, when something has been is a higher amount than usual, we can make it urgent and it's highlighted as red. So we've looked at the Windows 10 app. So Workflow Anywhere builds on the Extender Workflow, flexible and powerful design, which itself builds on the ability of Extender to run Python script. So with Configurator, you have your pre-configured actions. When you use Extender Developer, you can write your custom actions and use your custom tables in the actions as well. So you would still have all the power of the workflow, all the automatic logging and the audit history of what is going on with the workflow, but you can have your own little piece that will do very specific validation for your specific customer. For example, look at in order entry, do we have one line of the order that has a particularly low margin, which is our trigger to put that order on hold and have it approved. Workflow Anywhere app also benefits from AutoSimply's experience with writing mobile apps, specifically around Sage 300. The workflow in general and the workflow app in particular apply to Sage 300 core modules as well as third-party modules such as RMA and EFT and other. It's not just ORCID third-party modules, any modules developed in the SDK. You can use it for alerts as well as approvals processes like we've seen with the EFT option notification. It's particularly well suited to support remote sites because you can use it to connect remotely, but you can also use it locally within your network, and that provides you a pretty cost-effective licensing model to approve records in Sage 300, as your LAN packs are only used at the time of actually progressing workflow when you're using the app, and you can choose which users use the app. If you have looked at the ORCID website recently, you may have noticed that we have reviewed a bit how we group our 13 modules into 5 solutions. And Workflow Anywhere is a great addition to the tailoring, automation, and integration solution category, which builds on primarily on Extender and its ability to tailor Sage 300 through in a codeless manner using configuration, using the configurator version of Extender, where you can configure logging, alerts, and workflow for Sage 300 records, going all the way to your bespoke customization using Python scripts in Sage 300, which lets you automate some critical processes and support integration to external applications. Workflow Anywhere and Remote Action Service both let you approve Extender workflow records without having to log on to Sage 300. Process Schedule is part of this category because it lets you schedule critical business processes automatically. In particular, you can schedule extender scripts, and it can work in conjunction with Remote Action Service and with workflow for alerts and notifications without a user having to do anything in Sage 300 for your time-based alerts. So both Workflow Anywhere and Remote Action Service let you approve without logging to Sage 300 formally. They can be used together very effectively. For example, in our demo data, you will notice that the PO approval uses both the Remote Action Service, which sends you a one-time link that you can use to click on and approve, but managers can also use the app to see the list of what is pending for them to do. Some of the key differences between both is that Workflow Anywhere has a pricing per named user, whereas Remote Action Service, the pricing is it's a monthly subscription, and the pricing is based on the number of transactions within a range that you do per month, that you approve per month. Workflow Anywhere, when you install it, it configures a website in IIS, so you need to have IIS set up on your server, whereas Remote Action Service does not require any install. It runs on AWS. And you don't need any firewall configuration. You don't need to open a port. When you're using Workflow Anywhere, you need to use your to import your certificate to open your port in IIS. With Workflow Anywhere, you have a list of pending workflows that you can act on and progress. With Remote Action Service, will send you a one-time email link, typically for immediate action. You can go back to your email and click on the link later on. Workflow Anywhere approvals are processed immediately. As you're connecting, as you're saying approve, it connects to Sage and updates the workflow immediately, whereas the approvals on Remote Action Service are processed on the website and pulled into Sage 300 at regular intervals. So in the background, they work differently. Which one you need depends on your exact requirements, your approvers' requirements, how they work, your IT infrastructure, how your network is set up, how you work. We think that they both really can work very well together. But if you have any questions for a specific site, contact us and we'll help you work out what configuration is the best for your prospect. For more details on Workflow Anywhere, you can look at the Workflow Anywhere page on the ORCID website, and you can also access the resources in the product download area. We will be sending you a link to the recording of this webinar. We will also upload Workflow Anywhere presentation video on the website in the next few days if you want to have a closer look. And you can download the app and get going just now to have a play. So now open up for questions. As you know, I think you are all in listen-only mode, so typically you would put your questions in the questions box. So contact us to get your NFR code for Workflow users and Workflow Anywhere users if you haven't downloaded the latest product update of Extender yet.
The first question I see is, can you send me the link to this webinar? So yes, we will be sending the link out in the next couple of days, and it will also be on our website once we've completed the creating the video.
Question, what kind of filters will be available on Workflow Anywhere? At the moment, the filter is based on the user that is logged on. So it's showing the pending approval assigned to the specific user that is logging on or a group that they are in. There are no filters there's no other filters at this point on Workflow Anywhere. Something that is probably on the wish list. In the demo, we have a lot of approvals because we wanted to cover the range of workflow approvals that you can do with the app. We're not sure, what people will want to demo. So that's why there is quite a long list. But I think regarding another question that that came up is on the workflow console on the desktop, you can drill down to see the detail of the record you're approving, so your customer or batch or order. At the moment in Workflow Anywhere, what you see is basically the description and the status, who requested, and the date. So the same information that you see on the console. There is no ability to drill down. Again, that is on the wish list for future improvement. There's different ways that we're looking at that we can do that. So this is something that we will take on board for new improvements, the ability to view more details about the record you're approving on the app.
Another question here, would this be an efficient way to do a check run and have approvals as well? So yes, it would be, I'm not sure necessarily on the Workflow app, because all you could see is the total of the AP payment batch. But if that's all you need to approve an AP payment batch, then it would be a good way on the Workflow app. But using the console, definitely you can have an approval around posting an AP payment batch, and from the console people can drill down into the AP payment batch to look at the contents. So yes, it would be an efficient way to do that. What we're also looking at is a way to have a link on the Workflow app so that you'll be able to drill down into a PDF. So any PDF that you want to send with the Workflow instance. So in that case, once we're able to do that, that could be a batch listing. And then, yes, I think it would be an efficient way to approve on the, you'll be able to open the PDF to see all the payments. And if you're happy with them, approve the posting of the AP payment batch.
We'll add to that that at the moment, the approval is at the batch level. So you have to approve the whole batch or reject the whole batch. We currently in the extended workflow, you can't approve one single document within a batch at and or reject a single document and move it to another batch. So if you can't do that out of the box. So there are also things around that we are currently working on. So you'll probably hear more about this from us in the new year.
Any other questions? I'm not seeing any other questions, so compliments of the season to you all. Thanks very much for attending this session. We look forward to talking to you in the new year with all new things to release as always. And anything else to summarize, Natalie?
I don't think so. Thanks for attending today, and I know a lot of you have attended a few of our webinars this year, so we haven't visited you in person since TPAC, and we're not sure when we'll next come to your side of the world. So we are very proud to have done our monthly webinar on a very regular basis and to have you attend the webinars. So thanks a lot for your feedback and your support. Have a great holiday if you're having any time off, and we will speak to you in January again for the next webinar.
Have a great break.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.